Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paskatyare Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sari Gaur Bhakti-Vrindavan. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti-Vrindavan. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti-Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhangsa Prabhadakasharya Astatara Satushi Shriman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribos. Glorious to these sound devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shnivadi Paskadyade Sadarna Om Agana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Savitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhadu Siddhadevi Pranamami Hri Priye Panchakapa Tribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, text number 8. Nihi prabhashami mamat panujyad yatschokam. Do we have a response? Okay, we'll do it one line at a time then. Nihi prapashami mama panudyad. Yats chokamus chosham indriyanam. Avapya bhuma vasapatnaridam. Rajam suranam api chadipatyam. Nihi papashami mama panudyad. Yats chokamus chosanam indriyanam. Avapya bhuma vasapatnaridam. Rajam suranam api chadipatyam. Nihi papashami mama panudyad. Yat shokamuschosam indriyanam. Avapya muva vasapatnaridam. Rajam suranam api chadipatyam. Ladies, a little louder. Nehi prapashami mama panudyad. Yats chokamus chosam indriyanam. Avapya bhuma vasapatnaridam. Rajam saranam api chadipatyam. Na, do not. He, certainly. Prapashami, I see. Mama, my. Apanuyat, can drive away. Yat, that which. Shokam, lamentation. Uchoshanam, drying up. Indriyanam, of the senses. Avapya, achieving. Bhumau, on the earth. Asapatnam, without rival. Ridam, prosperous. Rajam, kingdom. Saranam, of the demigods. Api, even. Cha, also. Adipatyam, supremacy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Purport. Although Arjuna is putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Shri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence. And it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc., are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is a bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a spiritual master, as master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master. Kiva vipra, kiva nasi, shudra kenanoi, ye Krishna tattva veda se guru hoy. It does not matter whether a person is a vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a low family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8, 128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature, Sat karma nipano vipro mantra tantra visharada avaishnavo gurur nasyad vaishnava swapato guru. A scholarly Brahmin, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna conscious. Padma Purana. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentations for family, social, national, or international inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth, or supremacy like that of the demigods and the heavenly planets, would be able to drive away his lamentations. He sought therefore refuge in Krishna consciousness. That is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad-Gita confirms this. Shine punye martya lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness in the lowest status of life. Many politicians in the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness. So the verse again. Hi prapashami mapanudyad yachchokamuchosam indriyanam avapamuvasapapatmi ridam rajan saranam apichadipatyam. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Satarne. What I find interesting in this particular verse, Prabhupada's purport, is that he says that, so without being a master, it doesn't matter whether a person is a Vipra, or the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's verse, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature, Sat karma nipano vipro mantra tantra visharada avaishnava guru nasyad vaishnava swapato guru. Scholarly Brahmin, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava, or expert in the science of Krishna. But a person born in a family of lower castes can become a spiritual master. He is a Vaishnava, Krishna conscious. Or does it say there was Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master is 100% Krishna conscious, is a bona fide spiritual master, where he can solve the problems of life. Now we can imagine that Prabhupada didn't know what he was talking about, or that he contradicted himself, and that somehow or another we can adjust the fact that in order to be, according to this, in order to become a bona fide spiritual master, one has to be 100% Krishna conscious. Now the question is, what does 100% Krishna conscious mean? Does it mean that one can repeat some slokas? Or that one chants 16 rounds a day? What does it actually mean to be a bona fide 100% Krishna conscious? So it means you have to be on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, either Bhava or Prema. Then you can be said to be even Bhava is not quite 100%, but it's close enough to 100%. Because Bhava is one ray in the sunlight of Prema. So 100% Krishna conscious means that you must be on the platform of Prema Bhakti, or approaching it, at least Bhava, because that's also considered Uttama Adhikari. Now we don't know what Prema is, we don't know what Bhava is, we can assign that to anyone. But there are symptoms of Prema, and there are symptoms of Bhava. Viraktiya avyakta kvalatvam virakta manushunyataha ashabanda samudkanta namagana sadaruchi. See, bhakti, so therefore, even bhava, virakta, complete detachment from material life, avyarta kalatvam, doesn't waste even a moment, is always engaged in Krishna service, which is beyond even a sakti. When even the mind deviates for even a moment, immediately withdraws back and starts thinking about Krishna again. Virakta avyakta kalatvam virakta manushunyataha. Ashabanda samudkanta. No, I'm just doing a little liner there. One is eager to serve Krishna. One is always expecting Krishna's mercy, etc. One is always anxious to live in a place where Krishna had his pastimes, and has the taste for always chanting Hare Krishna. Now we can imagine, we can project that if someone gives initiation, then immediately they become an Uttama Adhikari. So that's called foolishness. We've already gone through that partly, but we're still stuck in that same foolishness, because that would mean that somehow or another we're not connected with a bona fide spiritual master, and indeed with that state of consciousness we wouldn't be connected with a bona fide spiritual master, because the connection is you become a bona fide spiritual master by connecting with your bona fide spiritual master. And luckily, we have a bona fide spiritual master in our disciple succession, namely Srila Prabhupada. And why was he a bona fide spiritual master? Because he was 100% Krishna conscious. And how do we know that he was 100% Krishna conscious? Well, we can only judge by his ability to convert others into actual trying to become devotees, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. How do we know that Krishna is God? How do we know that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God? We probably don't know. Therefore, we have to judge things from Scripture because we don't have the experience to actually know completely. We know as much as we experience. And we know partly intellectually by seeing things through the eyes of Scripture. So generally speaking, spiritual advancement starts with theoretical knowledge. So if we have no theoretical knowledge, we have no knowledge, really. Then we're just blind followers, which is better than not following at all. At least if you're following someone who's chanting Hare Krishna, at least you're not 100% blind. But the real thing is, if we're hearing, if we accept, as Prabhupada said at the beginning of Bhagavad-Gita, that There was one lady, she was asking Srila Prabhupada, can you recommend the Bhagavad-Gita? And Prabhupada said, yes, I can't recommend any Bhagavad-Gita because all of them, in English, they're all full of speculations. Because they don't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Acharyas have accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, most of these speculators don't. Now, if we don't accept, at least theoretically, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then his Bhagavad Gita is useless. It's just an ordinary book. So at least theoretically, at the beginning, we have to accept that Krishna might be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't reject and we don't blindly accept. Then we can if we hear Bhagavad Gita, and we can actually understand something what Krishna is saying, then the result is we follow it, we get some experience. That experience should be that we actually, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, we're actually able to see, at least intellectually, that it's true. For instance, Denosmi nita dehe kamaram yovanam jara tata dahantara prabhtir diryas tatra namuyati. At least intellectually we can understand that yes, it's a fact, my body's changing, but I'm not changing, therefore I'm eternal. And because I'm eternal, therefore I'm looking for eternal happiness. And I'm trying to find out what is the knowledge that can give me eternal happiness. So in that way, studying Bhagavad Gita, we can see that it's not by accident that planets move in their orbits, Gama Visha Chabutani Daryamaham Ojasa Pushnami Chosadi Sarva Samobhutva Rasatmikaha. That the planets are moving their orbits, so there must be intelligence behind the creation. It's not just random chance that's causing things to happen. There's supreme intelligence, so that when we eat food, it's digested, assimilated, and the unnecessary parts are eliminated. So such a wonderful arrangements are made in the world. So reading Bhagavad Gita, we should become convinced of only two things. One is that Krishna is God, and the other were his eternal servants. That's called, as much as we experience that, either intellectually, or we can understand intellectually, or by assimilating and it makes sense, everything becomes simpler, and then we act with conviction. In other words, the reason why Krishna doesn't reveal himself is because we're always doubtful, Krishna says, do this, and we say, well, and the Maya says, well, don't do it, and we're back, our minds are going back and forth between Krishna and our material conceptions of life. But if one acts with conviction, or as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, that one must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when the spiritual master sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. When we act with conviction in spite of our conditioned nature. Then, by continuously cultivating knowledge, cultivating perspective, acting with conviction, then gradually we become more and more skillful in our devotional service. And then we can actually constantly remember Krishna and feel his presence and develop the character of a pure devotee. So the question is, how is it that a less than 100% bona fide spiritual master who actually has Krishna's pastimes within his heart can actually give initiation? Prabhupada writes to Janardhan in 1969 that there are two types of devotees who can give initiation. One of them is like Srila Bhakti-yoga Thakur, who's Mahabhagavat. He sees everyone as a greater devotee than himself, although he may act on the second-class platform. Just like Srimati Radharani, she's so much in love with Krishna, she sees Krishna everywhere, in his different energies and as the souls. She only sees Krishna everywhere, either Krishna personally or through his different energies, which are simultaneously one but different from him. And she's in love with everyone and everything. Therefore, she sees even her own maidservants sometimes as greater devotees of Krishna than herself. So those are the persons who are actually qualified to give initiation. But then Prabhupada's right said there are others, although they're not so qualified, if they perfectly follow the disciple succession, or as Prabhupada said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj in 1977, if they're, he said that actually, I'd like to retire completely. The only thing is that one has to become what was the word that Prabhupada gave? Anyhow, more or less it's fixed, steady devotee. In other words, at least on the platform of liberation, where one is not doing anything or conveying anything other than that of Krishna consciousness. One may not have the bhava that emanates from his heart, that as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to get the animals in Jharikanda forest to dance and chant, because wherever he went, he emanated, he broadcasted the love of Radha and Krishna and his devotees, and therefore the whole atmosphere became spiritual, Goloka Vrindavan. So one may not have that bhava, but if one is actually, as Prabhupada writes in another part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are two types of liberated souls, or two types of Shiksha Gurus. Shiksha Guru K, Krishnara Sarup, Antaryami Bhakta Shrestha Eduri Rup. Krishna appears in two ways, as the Antaryami, the super soul, and as the best of the devotees. And brothers, there's two types of Shiksha Gurus. One who's perfectly situated in transcendence, and therefore he sees Krishna everywhere. He sees everything objectively. He knows exactly what's going on. Because, first of all, he speaks with Krishna directly. And the other thing is that everything is clear. There's nothing. He sees everything as it really is. And the other is the devotee who's not on that platform, who's more subjective, who has experience in Krishna consciousness, and is able to convey that according to his subjective experience. And therefore, he's able to help the devotee at least come up to that subjective experience. But then Prabhupada writes that the acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the devotee or disciple with full spiritual understanding, and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. Therefore, the conclusion is that those who are preaching, and everyone in our society is a preacher, they should realize that all they can do is try to become an instrument for Prabhupada. In other words, as much as they become an instrument for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is there and they're serving his instructions, then all the blessings of the previous acharyas also are there. To the extent that one is actually has realized and therefore can convey those realizations and even that feeling, that mood, because it's not a question of just intellectual understanding. It's not that necessarily constantly the pastimes of Krishna have to be flowing one's heart to have some feeling towards Krishna. No, everyone in the movement has some feeling, otherwise we wouldn't be here. If all we're doing is chanting Shnik Shnik Ram Ram Day 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 Day, no one would stick around for very long. There must be some experience. As it says in the Nectar of Devotion, that there are 5 powerful processes of pure devotional service, namely chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita, worshiping the deities, living in a holy place, and serving the devotees. And especially living in a holy place means that anywhere we go when we preach, that converts that place into a holy place. Because Krishna is there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the whole disciple succession is there. So as much as we focus our attention, especially in these 5 powerful processes, and then we can experience to some degree or another bhava, or ecstasy. Now, if one is not convinced of that, if one thinks I'm an independent guru, that although I'm not on the Prema Bhakti platform, I can invent my own process, I have my own ideas, then one is useless, asara. Then one becomes useless. And one realizes one's fallen condition, but tries to help others at least come to the platform that they're on. Then one can actually convey the message of simple succession as one sticks to the orders of Prabhupada and our acharyas into succession. When we say Prabhupada, we actually mean that Prabhupada was actually the sum total of all the acharyas. It's not that Prabhupada was an independent actor in Krishna consciousness. No, that he was constantly meditating upon his spiritual master, who was constantly meditating upon his spiritual master, and wherever they went, the whole disciple succession was there, including the 6 Goswamis, the Panchatattva, and ultimately Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Everyone was, wherever Prabhupada went, they were all there. Not just Prabhupada was there. So if we put Prabhupada's instructions in our heart, because it's not a question of just meditating upon Prabhupada, it's a question of serving his instructions too. And especially the instruction as to Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Aiga Gurahana Tari Desh. Whoever we meet, we should try to help them become Krishna conscious. That's our mission in life. Therefore, Prabhupada didn't just try to create a movement where, get as many followers as possible. He tried to create a movement where his followers were instructed how to help others become Krishna conscious, and therefore become useful to the mission under his instructions. Otherwise, we can see it's like amazing, especially since Prabhupada left, and immediately the whole society was more or less deviated by all kinds of crazy conceptions that had nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. The Zonacharya system came up, where so many crazy things were brought up that they said that these original gurus, that when everyone got together, that somehow or another Prabhupada was present. As if Prabhupada wasn't present, that we had to get 11 people together for Prabhupada to be present. Prabhupada's present in his books, he's present in his deity form, he's present in anyone's heart if they're following his instructions. Unfortunately, at that time, we didn't have Prabhupada's conversations, and I seriously doubt whether we ever got all of Prabhupada's conversations. But in any case, Prabhupada in his last conversations, he said, well, in 1977, when he was talking to, as I mentioned before, to the chief minister of some state in India, I forget who it was, maybe Uttar Pradesh, and they came to Prabhupada asking who the next leader will be in the movement. And Prabhupada said, actually, all my disciples will become the next leader, as much as they've understood and follow. Prabhupada never named anyone to become the next acharya. Now, giving initiation is different from being an acharya. You can give initiation where one accepts the surrender of the disciple, that they're going to chant 16 rounds and follow 4 principles and try to, serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the spiritual masters in our society, those who are giving initiation, they were supposed to work cooperatively under the GBC to spread Krishna consciousness. They were not supposed to become independent actors with their own little big or small kingdoms. That automatically makes anyone a Sara when that happens. Because immediately, when his Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Adi Lila 12, with Advaita Acharya, his sons deviated. And Prabhupada mentions how the Gaudiya Math, they also deviated in the same way. They thought they were going to do something more than their Acharya, than Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and they were going to become Acharyas themselves. And therefore they split the movement up. No, everyone giving initiation doesn't mean that automatically you become an acharya. As a matter of fact, if you think like that, then you become, you become a Sara, actually. You lose connection with Prabhupada. You think you're doing something independently of Prabhupada, then you're useless. Your connection with the whole, with Krishna and everyone else is cut off. But if one acts as simply a humble servant of Prabhupada, or acharyas, then the result is that one may be able to do something to help spread the Hare Krishna movement. Because then one will actually be an instrument for Krishna. Now there are only two types of living entities. There's Shara and Akshara. Duaimo Purusho Loke, Shara Akshara Evacha, Sara Sarvani Bhutani, Kutasta Shar Uchate. There are only two types of living entities in this world. One is called Shara, which is fallible, and Akshara, infallible. So when we're actually serving, when we're connecting with Prabhupada and our acharyas in the simple succession, then we become instruments for them to whatever degree we're surrendered. We're under the spiritual energy. And when we don't do that, we're cut off, then we become Shara. Akshara, actually, fallible. Then we become a Sara, useless in what we're doing at that time. As we see, we had big acharyas, so-called acharyas in our society. One of them was practically elected as the acharya of the society, and the same months after that, he fell down in an abominable way. Not that he was a demon, or that he was somehow or another, he was unloyal or whatever. It's just that he took a position which was poisonous. And because we're conditioned souls, therefore naturally we become easily bewildered by the illusory energy. It doesn't take much. Even a devotee relatively advanced can become easily bewildered by the illusory energy and fall into some abominable condition. Especially the most poisonous thing is to believe that you're a god. That you're as good, and thinking that you're as good as God when you're not is also quite poisonous. Therefore, one should try to remain humble. And when we give an initiation within our society, it's not that it's all worthless, they're all demons, they're all pretenders. No, one should understand that one is simply trying to be, the best one can do is try to become a humble instrument for Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, and make sure that whatever we say is backed up by what Prabhupada did and what he said. Then one is actually acting as a proper leader within our society, and therefore one who follows such a leader as a servant of the servant of the servant of Prabhupada into succession. It's not that we're fanatically, we put Prabhupada in some pedestal, It is not that. The Prabhupada actually spread Krishna consciousness around the world. He actually was directly empowered by his spiritual master and was completely addicted to Krishna. And everything about him, everything in his books, are just about how we can become Krishna conscious. There's nothing else in there. So if we want to become Krishna conscious, then to take shelter of Prabhupada is the best way. And to take shelter of those who are trying to take shelter of Prabhupada, that's also helpful. So the only thing wrong with our society is that somehow or another, because of the original, it's just natural. Conditioned souls are naturally, they're attracted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. That's why they're conditioned souls. So, although the devotees who were prominent at that time, who were more or less leaders of society, they were just, I think the oldest one was like 30 years old. He was considered like, an old man, ready for retirement. And others were in the movement, Prabhupada came in 66. He started really the movement in 66. And some of them joined in 68. And then they were in the movement for like Prabhupada left in 77, so that means that there were 9 years in the movement. And suddenly they became acharyas. They thought they had become acharyas, at least some of them concocted the idea that they were acharyas. And others went along with it. And suddenly they had, as one of my friends, Jai Tirtha Prabhu, said, he initiated 100 devotees at a time, and half of them were young 20-year-old ladies falling at his feet, begging him to serve him in any way he wanted. So after you initiate a few hundred beautiful young ladies like that, you think, well, I'm liberated. And when you're 25 years old or something, the only time you read the Bhagavad-Gita was, when you heard a class by Prabhupada sometime, because you were a good manager. And therefore you had, they did know the philosophy very well. They never studied it very much. They didn't have much realization because they were just off the street. Jai Tirtha Prabhu, for instance, before he joined the movement, he was a member of Timothy Leary's group, taking LSD every day and having less than devotional activities with the young ladies in the ashram. And suddenly, after some years of doing nice service, because under Prabhupada's association, his guidance, his inspiration, they did wonderful service. But then they got this idea they had become acharyas, and they became thinking that, some of them thought Prabhupada was an old man from India. They had so many conceptions. And therefore they quickly were exposed for their misconceptions. Not that they were demons, because under Prabhupada's association, direction, they did wonderful work. And although Prabhupada understood what was going to happen, but what could he do? He understood that if he put the brakes on too much with these less than ideal followers, then they would have split the movement into little bits. So he let us learn by experience. So the purport is that everyone needs a leader, everyone has to have an example. Prabhupada's the ideal example, but we also need examples of Prabhupada, that those who are following Prabhupada. So Prabhupada also allowed initiation to go on, and the idea of initiation is to help the disciple surrender, but they should surrender to Prabhupada's example and instructions as portrayed by the current devotees who are representing Prabhupada. Not that they can concoct their own ideas, and they have to study Prabhupada's books. We have to see, first of all, everyone should study Prabhupada's books as the basis, otherwise we'll be cheated, because we won't know what the standards are. It's not that I'm giving initiation, therefore I can suddenly come up with my own standards. No, at least one should try to understand what Prabhupada said. Like I'm reading Jayadvaita Swami's book on kirtan standards. So we should try to understand what Prabhupada said, Prabhupada didn't want, for instance, Nityai Gaur, Radhe Sham, whatever it is. I was hearing that from in the Russian house today. I don't know who's leading the kirtan there, but it wasn't. They came up with their own idea. From the time I joined in 1968, immediately there were so many concoctions. And Prabhupada, when he went around, he had to, tell us not to do it. We were saying, Gopal, Gopal, Govinda Gopal. So, because we got it from the devotees who are living in India. This is the place which, since time immemorial, has been concocting things about Krishna. So we should try to understand what Prabhupada's instructions are. Prabhupada's instructions are, generally speaking, quite simple. Chant Hare Krishna. Chant, as Prabhupada told Hari Kesha Prabhu, that Mangal Arti means chanting the Guru Vastika prayers in a certain tune, then chanting Shri Krishna Chaitanya, and then chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And that's it. Because here in Vrindavan, we can also Vivari Shesha Aloka Pravesha. So that can also be chanted because there's this samadhi. So at least try to understand what Prabhupada was saying. You know, even when Prabhupada gave direct instructions to his disciples, like he wrote me some letters with direct instructions, but they're all the same, you know. It's not like he gave me something special. As Prabhupada said, that the more you work seriously to help bring Krishna and his other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then the more he'll bestow his blessings upon you. That Krishna is never ungrateful to our efforts to serve him. And one letter he wrote to me, he said, please study all the books I've written, and sometimes afterwards you'll have to help carry on the disciple succession. So Prabhupada never meant that the disciple succession was going to end with him, and that we should also take initiation from him, because we can't hear from him. We can't hear from the super soul, what to speak of hearing from him. So we have to hear, we have to associate with the devotees and hear from them and follow, and serve them. And the best devotees to serve are those who are serving Prabhupada, and we know they're serving Prabhupada because they teach us properly how to serve the other devotees. It's not that the disciple succession ended with Prabhupada. No, Prabhupada's never left. Nor did all the other acharyas ever leave. They're all here. And they're here, they're represented by those who are following the instructions, especially the instructions that teach us how to identify who's a higher level than we are, who's on the same level as we are, who's on a lower level of Krishna consciousness, and how to serve them appropriately. That there's nothing but service attitude and loving exchanges in the devotional community, appropriately. The only problem is when we think someone is high, so high that we blindly follow them, and we don't follow them in relationship to our acharyas, especially Prabhupada. We just blindly follow them because we don't read Prabhupada's books. We don't read his instructions. We just think, I don't have to, because Prabhupada's, he's gone, and we need the next acharyas come. And I just follow them blindly because it's too difficult to read these books. No, that's ridiculous. Prabhupada's presence in his books, and he's present in those who are following his instructions. And we have, if we're following someone as our guide, as our inspiration, we have to make sure that what they're guiding us, what they're instructing us, is actually what Prabhupada wanted. Now there's a little problem, which I won't go into now because we don't have time. Namely that the GBC, who Prabhupada set up to make sure that this happens, happened to be populated by the very devotees who deviated the movement, who wanted to become independent acharyas. After all, it's very nice for the conditioned soul if he gets wealth, money, women, followers, whatever else, just by getting a title. It's really easy. Everything that you ever wanted in the material world is just given to you just by someone saying that now you become as good as God. And therefore, you know, it's attractive for the conditioned soul to accept such false philosophy. Easy, it's called sahajya actually, and impersonalism. It's very easy to do that. Therefore, the GBC, which is supposed to focus the whole movement on preaching, following Prabhupada's instructions and spreading Krishna consciousness, as much as we can understand what Prabhupada said, to focus in on that and just do that, the GBC has become, you know, more or less like trying to keep the guru system together because it doesn't work. The current guru system, you know, where everyone creates their kingdom and they do whatever, they're inspired in some way, which they do nice work, they do fantastic service until they leave their body, and usually their whole system falls apart because they're not connected. The actual connection between the members of their own group is not there because the only connection we can actually make is through Prabhupada and the disciple succession. Only when we get the mercy of the whole disciple succession, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, and Krishna, can we actually start entering into the hearts of others. Otherwise, it's not possible. Therefore, when our inspiration goes away, either by failure or by retiring, or by leaving their body. Therefore, people can't connect even within their own group. They've never learned how to connect. What to speak of with others, other devotees, because they have this false conception, this is my guru groupie, that's their guru groupie. And they think, well, we're doing great and you're not so good. We actually have the real spiritual master, and everyone else has kind of like, anyhow, you're doing all right, but you don't see the real thing. So this kind of thing, so it's really up to the GBC to give the purpose of our society, to give the vision of our society, or to purpose the purpose, the mission, and the vision of our society, and communicate it throughout the whole society. And at the same time, to organize the whole society simply organize the society for that purpose, for the preaching mission, and for the development of higher consciousness. That's the only reason why we have a society. Not to simply build buildings, which are nice, to have buildings, like there's a wonderful room. We need buildings, but that's all the purpose of the buildings. The purpose of our devotee care, the purpose of our preaching outlet, is to raise our consciousness so that we become conscious of Krishna. They're not ends in themselves. The end is to become conscious of Krishna, to develop love for Krishna. And these are the means by which we do it. This is our service to Krishna through the buildings, through the devotee care, through the book distribution, through the studying. These are our means to serve Krishna, so we become Krishna conscious. Otherwise, they're just outward shows of devotional service without any real development. And unless we're developing the vision to serve everyone appropriately, then we don't have any vision. Then we just have some mental conception of what we're doing here. Anyhow, I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Maharaj, we see now in ISKCON Swami becomes a GVC, and then he appoints all his disciples on the important temple positions of a temple that's been created by Prabhupada. And, the culture is totally changed. The emphasis is taken away from Prabhupada.
Yes, that's. Therefore, it's up to there has to be intelligent Krishna conscious persons on the GBC who actually see that the mission, that we give up these false identifications. Prabhupada never meant that if one was actually an acharya, then he would have an equal vision. He'd perfectly be able to help guide the GBC for the purpose and the mission that our acharyas have given us through Prabhupada. So, but if one doesn't have that, then we have to establish a real GBC.
But as you mentioned, especially in India, this worship system, they worship the GBC or the sannyasi so much that no one is ready.
That's not so bad, as long as they're following Prabhupada. As much as they follow Prabhupada, they'll be benefited. It's not by accident that one becomes a GBC or a sannyasi or initiating guru. It's not by accident. Krishna is also arranging that. But it's a learning it's a learning program for those who are GBCs and sannyasis and everyone else. It's our school. We can't learn by hearing, then we'll have to learn by experience. So the fact that there is a GBC and is going on is glorious. The fact that we are actually making sannyasis is also glorious. But there has to be further experience and training. That's all. So it gets better. Therefore, that's why I speak so openly. Because hardly anyone else does it. It's considered bad manners to tell the truth. Disturbs people's minds. Yes. 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 I'm a little confused. Can you say it slower? And
So my question is, how can we serve junior devotees? Uh, um, because we can't serve same way we serve senior Vaishnavas. It might not be good for their spiritual advancement. But also,
well, let's take it one step at a time, otherwise I'll get confused. First of all, we have to understand, yes.
I can, she's asking, there is a new devotees. How can we serve new devotees? Because new devotees sometimes not accept us as senior devotees.
Is that true?
This is your question.
Well, they shouldn't be allowed, first of all, if one doesn't follow Vaishnava etiquette, they shouldn't be part of the society. The best way of stopping trouble is before they join. You have to have some discrimination who actually joins the society. If one is not prepared to understand, who's superior and who's doesn't have enough brains to understand, not just by the number of days you've been in the movement, but if one is actually more serious about following the program, even more steady in sadhana, has nice personal relations with the devotees. If one doesn't accept such a devotee as superior to themselves when they join, they shouldn't be allowed to move into the ashram. They should be outside the society. Otherwise, they'll commit offenses, and it'll destroy their devotional activity, and it'll frustrate the devotees who are trying to help others, who have enough knowledge to understand, who can see things, who's superior and who's inferior. So it's a question of organization. But because our organization sometimes is not very well done, therefore we invite all kinds of people into the ashram who are unqualified. And they create a disturbance for everyone in the ashram. Therefore no one wants to live in the ashram because it's too disturbed by unqualified devotees.
what about those devotees who are not in ashram? They are very new. But we try to raise their consciousness by serving them. But when they are younger and new, not in ashram, but we still try to help them. So how do we approach?
Well, you have to understand that unless someone accepts you as superior, you can't train them. You shouldn't try and train someone who doesn't accept you as a superior, because first of all, they'll offend you and they'll commit offenses, and you'll offend them. So we have to have some discrimination, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad-Gita. Anuvega karam vakyam sattva prihitam chayat swadaya vyasanam chaiva vangmana tapuchate. That austere speech is to say things which are truthful, which are pleasing, which are beneficial, which follow the scriptures, and which don't agitate people's minds. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that one can give instructions to a devotee, but not if they accept you as an authority. One can give instructions to such a person, but not to someone who, that they don't accept you and you'll agitate their minds by giving instructions. Of course, in a class you can say different things, but we have to have as Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction, the superior devotee is always situated as the spiritual master, and the inferior devotee is always accepted as the servant, as his disciple. So it's a natural relationship. It's not just official, but it should be a natural relationship. So if we see someone doesn't listen to us, we shouldn't give them instructions, because it's offensive. Will it be agitating their minds? It's preaching to the unfaithful. It's one of the offenses against the holy name. Therefore, devotees should, even on the outside, we should relate to them as they really are, not as we think they should be. We should try to perceive where their consciousness really is at in relation to ourselves and act accordingly. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Grantaraj Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribol.